If you can't sleep again, that's all right. The night has a way of stretching on when the rain won't stop. I've gathered 5 stories for you. Quiet, strange ones that drift between dreams and memory. Just listen and let them carry you until the morning. Story 1. I waited at a bus stop that doesn't exist. My car broke down on a Tuesday. Not dramatically, it just wouldn't start when I tried to leave work. Dead battery, the mechanic said when the tow truck finally came. Would take a day or 2 to get the part and fix it. In the meantime, I'd have to use public transportation. I was 27, living in Portland, working as a legal assistant downtown. I'd been driving to work for 3 years and had no idea how the bus system even worked anymore. Used to take it in college, but that was a different city, different routes, different life. I pulled up the transit app on my phone, entered my address and work address. The app showed me several options, but one route was highlighted as fastest, the 47 bus, leaving from a stop 3 blocks from my apartment at 7:42 a.m. direct route, only 15 minutes to downtown. Perfect. The next morning, I walked those 3 blocks. It was late October, that time of year, when Portland mornings are dark and damp, everything wrapped in mist. I found the bus stop easily enough. Standard blue and white sign on a pole, covered shelter with a bench inside, the number 47 clearly marked. I was the only one there. Not surprising for 7:40 a.m. in a residential neighborhood. I sat on the bench, checked my phone, waited. The shelter smelled like wet leaves and old coffee. Rain dripped steadily from the roof edge. At exactly 7:42, I looked up expecting to see the bus. The street was empty, no headlights, no sound of an engine, nothing. I checked the app. It still showed the 47 arriving at 7:42. I refreshed it, same information. I waited another 5 minutes, no bus. Checked the app again. Now it showed the next 47 at 8:12, half an hour away. That would make me late for work. I pulled up alternative routes, found one that was less convenient but would get me there on time if I hurried. Jogged 4 blocks to a different stop and caught a different bus. Made it to work 15 minutes late anyway. Explained about my car, about missing the bus. My boss was understanding but told me not to make it a habit. The next morning, I left earlier. Got to the 47 bus stop at 7:35, giving myself extra time in case the schedule was off. Same empty street, same damp shelter, same smell of decay and rain. 2 other people were waiting this time, a woman in scrubs who looked like she worked at a hospital, and an older man in a heavy coat reading a newspaper. I felt relieved. At least I wasn't alone this time. At least the stop was legitimate if other people were using it. "Does this bus run on time usually?" I asked the woman. She looked up from her phone. "What bus?" "The 47th. That's what this stop is for, right?" She frowned, looked at the sign on the pole. "This stop is for the 47? I'm waiting for the 28th. "The sign says 47, I said, pointing. She walked over to the pole, studied the sign. "Huh. You're right. I could have sworn this was a 28 stop. I take it every morning." She pulled out her phone, checked her transit app. "That's weird. My app says the 28 stops here, but the sign definitely says 47 inches. The old man folded his newspaper. "Neither of you know what you're talking about. This is the 15th route, has been for 30 years. We all looked at each other, confused. Then at the sign. It clearly said 47. But when I opened my transit app and checked, it now showed this stop as serving routes 15 and 28. No 47 listed. But yesterday, it had been there. I'd seen it. The app had directed me here specifically for the 47. "I think the app is glitching," the woman said. "Technology, you know." A bus approached, the 28th. The woman got on. The old man stayed waiting, still insisting this was the 15th route, even though the sign and both our apps said otherwise. I checked my app again. The closest 47 stop was now showing as 6 blocks away, but I was standing right here, under a sign that said 47. I took a photo of the sign with my phone, just to prove I wasn't losing my mind. I ended up taking the 28 with that woman, getting off downtown and walking the extra blocks to my office. Late again. My boss was less understanding this time. That night, I studied the transit maps online, looked up every mention of the 47 bus route, found the official schedule, the official list of stops. The stop 3 blocks from my apartment wasn't listed. According to the Transit Authority's website, the 47 ran on the complete opposite side of the city, nowhere near my neighborhood. But the sign was there. I had a photo of it, a physical blue and white sign that said 47 with the official Transit Authority logo. I posted in a local Reddit thread, asked if anyone else had seen weird bus stops or had route changes without announcement. Got a few responses about construction detours and temporary stops, but nothing like what I was experiencing. One comment stood out though. Check if the stop is actually registered with the city. Sometimes old stops stay up after routes change. Ghost stops, people call them. The signs are still there, but no buses service them anymore. Ghost stops. That made sense. Maybe this stop used to be for the 47 years ago, and they never removed the sign when they changed the route. That would explain the confusion. Except it didn't explain why my app had directed me there, why it had shown a schedule, why the app data kept changing. I decided to try a different route to work, avoid the whole situation. But Friday morning, running late and frazzled, I wasn't paying attention to where I was walking. Muscle memory took me the same path I'd been taking all week. By the time I realized, I was already at the bus stop, the 47th stop, 3 blocks from my apartment. Empty shelter, rain dripping, that same smell of wet decay. But this time, there was someone else waiting. A teenage girl, maybe 16 or 17, wearing a school uniform. She sat on the bench, earbuds in, backpack at her feet. I almost walked away, went to find a different stop. But something made me sit down, keep the girl company, make sure she was okay waiting alone in the dark morning. "Hey," I said, "do you know if the 47 actually stops here?" She didn't respond. Couldn't hear me over her music, probably. I waved to get her attention. She still didn't react, didn't even glance at me. I looked closer. Something was off about her. Her skin looked wrong, too pale, almost translucent in the dim shelter lighting. Her uniform was outdated, the style from maybe 20 or 30 years ago, and she was completely still, not moving at all, not breathing, not blinking, just sitting there like a statue. I stood up quickly, backed away from the bench. "Excuse me? Are you okay?" No response. She just sat there, earbuds in, staring straight ahead at nothing. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the flashlight, shined it on her face. She didn't react to the light, didn't squint or look away, and I could see now she wasn't breathing. Her chest wasn't moving. She was completely, impossibly still. I turned and ran. Didn't stop until I was 2 blocks away, breathing hard, hands shaking. Looked back at the bus stop. The shelter was empty. No girl. No one at all. I called in sick to work. Went home, locked my door, tried to rationalize what I'd seen. Lack of sleep, stress, the dark morning playing tricks on my eyes. The girl had been real, and I'd just panicked for no reason. She'd gotten up and left while I was running away. But I knew what I'd seen. That stillness, that absence of life. She hadn't been real, or she'd been something that used to be real a long time ago. I started researching, looked up accidents involving buses in Portland, found several over the years, but one caught my attention. From 1994, 30 years ago. A bus had crashed on a rainy morning, went off the road and hit a shelter. 3 people killed, the bus driver and 2 passengers waiting at the stop. One of the passengers was a 16-year-old girl named Sarah Chen on her way to school. The accident happened on Willamette Street, 3 blocks from my apartment, right where that bus stop was. I found more articles, The stop had been closed after the accident, permanently shut down. Too dangerous, poor visibility, confusing intersection, history of near misses. The route was changed. The stop was supposed to be removed, but the sign was still there. The shelter was still there. And according to the articles, the route that had serviced that stop was the number 47. I looked at the photo I'd taken of the sign, zoomed in. The paint was faded, worn. This wasn't a new sign. This was old, decades old, never replaced because the stop had been closed before they'd gotten around to it. I'd been waiting at the site of a fatal accident, at a stop that hadn't been active in 30 years, and somehow my transit app had directed me there, had shown me a schedule for a bus that no longer ran that route, or had it. I checked my app history, looked back at my searches from that first day. The 47 route was there, but when I clicked on it now, the stop near my apartment wasn't listed. No record of it ever being there. But I had the screenshot. I'd taken a screenshot that first morning when the bus didn't show up. I opened my photos, found it. The image showed the route, the stop, the schedule. Proof I hadn't imagined it. Except when I looked at the screenshot now, the stop location was different. It showed a stop 6 blocks away, the current, actual stop for the 47. The image had changed, even though that was impossible, even though screenshots don't change. My hands were shaking again. I needed to talk to someone, confirm I wasn't losing my mind. Called Maya, my best friend since college. I need you to look something up for me, I said. The 47 bus route in Portland. Tell me where the stops are. I heard her typing. Okay, I've got the route map. What am I looking for? Is there a stop on Willamette Street? 3 blocks south of Market? More typing. No. Closest stop to that area is on Oak Street, about 6 blocks over. Why? There's a bus stop there. I've been waiting at it all week. The sign says 47 inches. Maybe it's an old sign? You know how the city is about removing stuff. Yeah, I said quietly. Yeah, that's probably it. But we both knew that didn't explain everything else. The app directing me there. The schedule that appeared and disappeared. The girl who wasn't breathing. That weekend, I went back to the stop. Daylight this time, broad noon with sun breaking through the clouds. The shelter was there, the sign was there. Everything looked normal, mundane. Just a forgotten piece of city infrastructure that no one had gotten around to removing. I walked around the area, looking for any indication of what had happened here. No memorial plaque, no flowers, no sign that 3 people had died on this corner 30 years ago. Just cracked sidewalk and an empty bus shelter. Then I noticed something. On the bench inside the shelter, scratched into the metal, initials. SC 1994. Sarah Chen, the girl from the accident. She'd carved her initials here, probably while waiting for buses before school. Before the day the bus didn't stop properly. Before the crash. I sat down on the bench, traced the initials with my finger, felt the grooves in the metal, proof that she'd been real, that she'd existed, that she'd waited here just like I had. I'm sorry, I said to the empty air. I'm sorry that happened to you. The wind picked up, rattling the shelter's metal frame. And for just a second, I smelled something other than wet leaves. Something like strawberry shampoo. Something like a teenage girl's perfume. Then it was gone. Just rain and decay again. I never waited at that stop again. Started walking a different route to work, even after my car was fixed. Avoided that street entirely. But sometimes, driving past late at night, I'd see people in the shelter, waiting, always waiting. A woman in old-fashioned clothes, a man in a bus driver's uniform from the 90s, a teenage girl with earbuds, never moving, never breathing. Ghost stops, places where something terrible happened, where people died waiting for transportation that never came. And somehow, some glitch in the system, or something beyond the system, still directed people there, still showed schedules for buses that didn't run anymore, still trapped passengers in a loop of waiting that would never end. I talked to the transit authority once, told them about the stop, suggested they remove the sign. The woman I spoke to looked up the location, frowned at her computer. "There's no stop at that address," she said. "According to our records, there's never been a stop there. Are you sure you have the right street?" "I have photos," I said. She looked at the photos on my phone. The sign, the shelter, the number 47 clearly visible. "That's odd. That looks like one of our stops, but it's not in our system. I'll send someone to check it out." 2 weeks later, I got a call back. "We sent maintenance to that address. There's no bus stop there, no sign, no shelter, nothing, just sidewalk. Are you sure you have the right location?" But I'd been there, multiple times. I'd sat on that bench. I'd touched that sign. I'd seen the girl who wasn't breathing. Unless I hadn't. Unless I'd been seeing something that only existed in whatever space ghosts occupy, whatever frequency the dead operate on. I went back one more time, the day after that phone call. Walked those 3 blocks from my apartment. The street looked the same, narrow, residential, lined with trees and parked cars. But there was no bus stop, no shelter, no sign. Just empty sidewalk where I knew there had been a structure standing yesterday. I walked the exact spot. Nothing. I pulled out my phone, looked at my photos. The images of the stop, the sign, the number 47, they were gone, deleted, even though I hadn't deleted them. The only photo that remained was one I'd taken of the bench, the metal seat with scratched initials, SC 1994. Proof I hadn't imagined everything. Or maybe just proof that some things leave marks even after they're gone. Some places hold on to their tragedies. Some accidents never really end. I did more research after that. Found online forums dedicated to urban legends, ghost stories, unexplained phenomena. Found dozens of stories like mine. People waiting at bus stops that didn't exist. Train stations that weren't on any map. Subway platforms that appeared and disappeared. Liminal spaces, some people called them. Places that existed between the real world and wherever people went when they died. Transportation hubs seemed especially prone to it. Places designed for people in transition, moving from one location to another. Sometimes the transition got stuck. Sometimes people got stuck in it. One post from a user named GhostTracker87 stood out. "If you ever find yourself waiting somewhere and the transportation never comes, leave. Don't keep waiting. Don't try to figure it out. Don't talk to the other passengers. Just leave. Because if you wait too long, you might end up like them, stuck there forever, waiting for something that's never going to arrive." I thought about the teenage girl, about Sarah Chen, waiting for her bus on a rainy morning in 1994, the last morning of her life. About how she'd been waiting at that stop for 30 years, still trying to get to school, still thinking the bus would come eventually. About how my app had directed me there, how I'd almost become another passenger, another person stuck waiting forever. The mechanic called the next day. My car was ready. New battery, running perfectly, all fixed up. I picked it up that afternoon, drove it home, parked it in my spot behind my building. I drive to work now, every day. Even though parking is expensive downtown, even though it's not environmentally friendly, even though traffic is terrible, because I know what's out there. I know that some stops on the map aren't really there. Some routes don't actually run. Some passengers have been waiting so long they've forgotten they're dead. And I know that one wrong turn, one app glitch, one moment of not paying attention, and you could end up waiting too. Standing in a shelter that exists and doesn't exist, watching for a bus that came and didn't come, trapped in a moment of transition that never resolves. To this day, I can't use public transportation without anxiety. Every bus stop I see makes me wonder if it's real. Every schedule makes me question if those times are accurate or if I'm looking at something that hasn't been updated since an accident decades ago. I see people waiting, normal people, living people, just trying to get somewhere. And I wonder if they know, if they can tell the difference between a real stop and a ghost stop, if they'd recognize the other passengers for what they are. Sometimes I drive past that street, 3 blocks from my apartment, the stretch of sidewalk where the 47 stop used to be, where maybe it still is, in whatever reality exists parallel to ours, where Sarah Chen still waits with her earbuds and her backpack, forever 16, forever on her way to school. And I think about that morning I ran away, about how I left her there, alone, still waiting. I should have stayed, should have told her the bus wasn't coming, should have told her she could stop waiting. But would she have heard me? Or was she too far gone, too deep in that frozen moment to understand that time had moved on without her? I'll never know, and I'm too afraid to go back and check, because the stop isn't there anymore. According to everyone official, it was never there. The records show no stop, no sign, no shelter. The photos deleted themselves. The app corrected its error. But I know what I saw. I know where I waited. I know the smell of wet decay and strawberry shampoo. I know the feeling of sitting on a cold metal bench at 7:40 a.m., watching an empty street, trusting that something would come for me. I know what it's like to wait at a stop that doesn't exist, and I know I'm lucky I didn't wait too long. If you take public transportation, check your routes carefully. Make sure the stops you're waiting at are on the official maps. Make sure the other passengers look alive, breathing, blinking, moving. Make sure your app hasn't glitched and sent you somewhere you shouldn't be. Because some stops are traps, some schedules are loops, some passengers have been riding forever, never reaching their destination, never understanding they've already arrived at their final stop. Don't wait at bus stops that don't exist. Don't trust schedules that don't make sense. Don't talk to passengers who don't breathe. And if you find yourself 3 blocks from anywhere, in a shelter that smells like wet decay, watching an empty street at 7:42 a.m., run. The bus isn't coming. It never was. And if you wait too long, you'll be there forever, just another passenger in a shelter that exists and doesn't exist, waiting for transportation to somewhere you'll never reach. I waited at a bus stop that doesn't exist. But I left before I became another person who doesn't exist either. Sarah Chen wasn't so lucky. And she's still waiting, still hoping that this time, finally, the 47 will come. Story 2. Letters sent to a name I don't know. The first letter arrived on a Tuesday in September. I'd just moved into my apartment in Boston, a small 1-bedroom in Jamaica Plain, affordable enough for my nonprofit salary. The mailbox in the lobby had my name written on a piece of tape. Emma Chen, 3B. When I checked my mail that first week, there were the usual things. Junk mail addressed to current resident, a welcome packet from the building management, a few catalogs, and one handwritten envelope addressed to Catherine Wells, apartment 3B. I figured it was for the previous tenant. I wrote "Return to sender," not at this address on the envelope, and put it back in the outgoing mail. The next day, there was another letter. Same handwriting, same name. Catherine Wells. This time I opened it, thinking maybe there was a forwarding address inside. The letter was short, written on plain white paper in careful cursive. Dear Catherine, I hope this letter finds you well. It's been 3 months since we last spoke. I think about you every day. The house is so quiet without you. Please write back when you're ready. I understand if you need more time. Love always, Margaret. No return address, no last name for Margaret. Just a heartfelt letter to someone who didn't live here anymore. I felt bad for whoever Margaret was, clearly missing this Catherine person. I went to the building manager's office. Hi, I'm in 3B. Do you have a forwarding address for the previous tenant? Catherine Wells? She's getting mail. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Donna, looked confused. 3B, let me check. She pulled up something on her computer, scrolled through records. That unit's been vacant for 8 months. You're the first tenant in there since last January. So Catherine Wells didn't live there. Not according to our records. We've only had 3 tenants in 3B in the last 5 years, and none of them were named Catherine Wells. She showed me the screen. 3 names listed, none of them Catherine. That's weird. I'm getting letters addressed to her. Donna shrugged. Probably a mail mix-up. Wrong apartment number. You could write, "Not at this address," and send them back. I did that with the second letter, but the next day, there was a third one, then a fourth, then a fifth. 1 letter every day, all addressed to Catherine Wells at my apartment, all from Margaret with no return address, all in the same handwriting, all with similar messages. Missing Catherine, hoping she was well, asking her to please write back. After a week of this, I opened one of the letters and read it fully. Dear Catherine, it's been 108 days since you left. I've been counting. The garden is doing well. The roses you planted are blooming beautifully. I sit by them every evening and think about the day we planted them together. Do you remember? You said they were the color of hope. I'm still hoping. Please, Catherine, even just a word to let me know you're all right. I'm worried about you. Love always, Margaret. The letters were getting more desperate. Margaret clearly thought Catherine was alive and receiving these letters, but choosing not to respond. I felt terrible for her, but I had no way to contact her, no way to tell her Catherine wasn't at this address and never had been. I tried researching Catherine Wells, looked her up on social media, searched for any connection to my address or building. Found dozens of Catherine Wells, it's a common name, but none connected to Jamaica Plain or to my apartment. I searched for Margaret too, but without a last name it was hopeless. I thought about posting in local community groups, asking if anyone knew these people. But something stopped me. The letters felt private, intimate. It seemed wrong to publicize them. The letters kept coming, every single day. Margaret's messages became longer, more detailed. She'd write about her day, about memories she and Catherine had shared, about how much she missed having Catherine at home. Dear Catherine, today I made your favorite soup. Split pea, with the ham hock from Wilson's Butcher. I set a bowl out for you before I remembered you weren't here. I almost called out to tell you dinner was ready. The silence when I realized was unbearable. Please come home, or at least tell me where you are. I just need to know you're safe. Love always, Margaret. Reading these letters felt like intruding on someone's grief, but I couldn't stop. Each one revealed more about Margaret and Catherine's relationship. They'd lived together, sisters maybe, or close friends. They'd had routines, shared meals, planted a garden together. And then, Catherine had left, or disappeared. And Margaret was writing to her every single day, hoping for a response that would never come. After 2 weeks, I decided to try something different. I wrote a letter back. Dear Margaret, my name is Emma Chen. I live at the address you've been sending letters to. I'm sorry to tell you this, but Catherine Wells does not live here and never has. I moved in 6 weeks ago, and the apartment was vacant before that. I don't know who Catherine is or where she might be, but your letters aren't reaching her. If you include a return address, I can send your letters back to you. I'm very sorry. I didn't know where to send it, so I just put it in an envelope addressed to Margaret and left it in the outgoing mail with no address. Figured maybe whoever was delivering Catherine's letters could deliver this one back. The next day, there was a response. Handwritten envelope, no return address, addressed to me. Emma Chen, apartment 3B. Inside. Dear Emma, thank you for writing. I appreciate your honesty, but I'm afraid you're mistaken. Catherine does live there. She's been there for quite some time. Perhaps you simply haven't seen her yet. She can be very quiet. Please tell her I'm still waiting. Please tell her I love her and I'm not angry about what happened. I just want her home. Love, Margaret. My skin went cold reading that. Margaret insisted Catherine lived here. Was living here with me, apparently, just quietly, where I couldn't see her. I wrote back immediately. Margaret, I live alone. There is no one else in my apartment. I've been here every day for 6 weeks. There is no Catherine Wells here. Please, if you have concerns about someone missing, you should contact the police. The response came the next day. Dear Emma, I understand this must be confusing for you, but Catherine is there. I know she is. That's where she always goes when she's upset with me. That's her special place. Our special place. Please, just tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I didn't mean what I said. Tell her she can come home whenever she's ready. I'll be waiting. This was getting disturbing. Margaret seemed convinced that my apartment was somehow connected to Catherine. Some kind of delusion, maybe. Grief manifesting as denial. But why my apartment? Why this specific address? I went back to Donna, the building manager. The letters are still coming. And now whoever's sending them thinks the person they're looking for is actually living in my apartment with me. Donna frowned. That's creepy. You want to file a police report? I don't know. It doesn't feel threatening exactly, just sad. But I need to know more about this apartment. Has anything unusual happened here? Any weird history? She hesitated. Define unusual. I don't know. Anything. Deaths, crimes, anything that might explain why someone would fixate on this specific unit. Donna sighed. Okay, this is probably nothing, but there was an incident about 10 years ago. Woman who lived here, not a tenant, she was squatting, was found dead. Overdose. But that's not unusual in old buildings in this city. These things happen. What was her name? I'd have to check old records. This was before my time. But I remember hearing about it when I started working here. They said she'd been living in the building for months without anyone realizing, sneaking in, sleeping in vacant units. Can you find out her name? It took Donna 2 days, but she came back with a file. An incident report from February 2014. A woman found deceased in apartment 3B. The apartment had been vacant at the time, undergoing renovations. She'd been there for an unknown period. Police had investigated, ruled it an accidental overdose. No family had been located to claim the body. The woman's name was Catherine Wells. I sat in my apartment that night, staring at the walls, trying to process this information. Catherine Wells had died here, in this room, 10 years ago, and someone named Margaret had been writing to her every single day since then. Hundreds, maybe thousands of letters sent to a dead woman's last known location. The letters made horrible sense now. Margaret writing about how quiet the house was without Catherine, about wanting her to come home, about not being angry. She knew Catherine was dead. She had to know, but she was still writing, still hoping, still unable to let go. I should have stopped reading the letters then, should have written deceased, returned to sender on every envelope, and sent them all back. But I didn't. I kept opening them, kept reading Margaret's daily messages to someone who would never read them, and the letters were changing, getting stranger, more specific. Dear Catherine, I saw you today, in the window of your apartment, just for a moment. You looked so pale. Are you eating enough? Are you taking care of yourself? Please come home. Please, I can't bear this much longer. Love always, Margaret. Margaret thought she'd seen Catherine, seen her in my window, which meant Margaret had been to my building, had been standing outside, looking up at my apartment, watching. I checked my windows that night, looked out at the street below. No one was there. But the thought of someone standing out there, watching my windows, thinking they were seeing a dead woman, it made me lock all my windows and close all my curtains. The next letter was worse. Dear Catherine, I'm sorry I frightened you last night. I didn't mean to call up to you. I know you need your space, but I miss you so much. 10 years is too long. Please forgive me for what I said that night. I was angry. I didn't mean it. You know I didn't mean it. Come home. Love always, Margaret. 10 years. She'd acknowledged it. She knew Catherine had been gone for 10 years, and she was still writing, still watching, still waiting. I needed to understand this. Needed to know who Margaret was and what had happened 10 years ago. I searched for Catherine Wells's obituary, found a brief death notice from 2014. Catherine Wells, age 32, died unexpectedly, no services planned, no mention of family, no mention of Margaret, nothing that explained the connection. I expanded my search, looked for property records, social media, anything connected to either name. Finally found something, an old news article from 2013, a year before Catherine died. A small piece about a domestic dispute call. Police responded to a residence on Sycamore Street following reports of a disturbance. Margaret Wells, 45, and Catherine Wells, 31, were involved in an argument that neighbors described as intense and ongoing. No charges were filed. Both women declined to comment. Wells. They had the same last name, sisters probably, living together on Sycamore Street. And something had happened between them, something bad enough that Catherine had left, had ended up squatting in abandoned apartments, had died alone in what was now my home. I looked up the address on Sycamore Street. It was 15 minutes away, a small house in a residential neighborhood. I drove past it one afternoon, neat garden, flowers blooming, an older woman sitting on the porch. Margaret. It had to be her. She looked exactly like I'd imagined. Gray hair, sad eyes, sitting very still, waiting. I parked down the street, watched the house, watched Margaret sit on that porch for over an hour, not moving, just staring at the street like she was expecting someone to arrive. When I got home, there was another letter. Dear Catherine, I know you saw me today. I felt you watching. It's okay. I'm not upset. I just want to talk. I want to understand why you won't come home. What did I do that was so terrible you had to leave? That you had to hide from me? Please tell me. I can fix it. Whatever it is, I can fix it. Love always, Margaret. She'd known I was there. Known someone was watching her house. But she thought it was Catherine. Thought her dead sister was somehow observing her from beyond the grave. I should have left it alone. Should have stopped reading the letters, stopped thinking about Margaret and Catherine, stopped trying to understand their story. But I couldn't. I was obsessed now. Needed to know what had happened between them, what had driven Catherine away, what had made Margaret unable to accept her death. I went back to the house on Sycamore Street, knocked on the door. Margaret answered. She was smaller than she'd looked from a distance, frail, elderly, wearing a cardigan despite the warm weather. Can I help you? She asked. Are you Margaret Wells? Her expression changed. Hope flashed across her face, then confusion. Yes. Are you? Do you have news about Catherine? Can I come in? I need to talk to you about the letters you've been sending. She let me inside. The house was exactly what I'd expected. Neat, old-fashioned, frozen in time. Photos on every surface, all of two women. Margaret when she was younger, and Catherine, dark hair, sad eyes, thin face. We sat in the living room. I didn't know how to start, so I just pulled out one of the letters, showed it to her. Margaret stared at it, her hands shaking. Where did you get this? You've been sending them to my apartment. To Catherine Wells at my address. I'm Emma Chen. I live in apartment 3B now. That's not possible. I don't know what you're talking about. You've been sending letters there every day. For weeks. Maybe longer. Maybe for years. Margaret's face went pale. She stood up, walked to a desk in the corner, opened a drawer. Inside were stacks and stacks of letters. Hundreds of them. All in the same envelopes I'd been receiving. All addressed to Catherine Wells. I write them, she whispered. Every day I write to her. But I don't send them. I keep them here. I've kept every single one. I would never send them. She can't read them. Margaret, I've been receiving these letters every single day. She picked up one of the letters from the drawer, showed me the date. Yesterday, the same date as the letter that had arrived in my mailbox this morning. Same handwriting, same message. I don't understand, she said. I keep them all here. I've never mailed a single one. We stood there in her living room, both of us staring at the letters. The ones she'd written but never sent. The ones I'd been receiving. Somehow the same letters, existing in two places at once. Tell me what happened to Catherine, I said quietly. Please, I need to understand. Margaret sat down heavily, tears streaming down her face. We had a fight. A terrible fight. I said things I didn't mean, about her lifestyle, her choices, about the drugs. I told her she was killing herself. I told her she couldn't live here anymore if she was going to keep using. And she left. Just walked out. I thought she'd come back. I thought she just needed time to cool off. But she didn't come back. No, she disappeared. For weeks I looked for her, called hospitals, shelters, the police. No one had seen her. And then the police came to tell me they'd found her. She'd been living in an abandoned apartment. She'd overdosed. Alone. She died alone because I kicked her out. It wasn't your fault, I said. Wasn't it? She was my baby sister. I was supposed to take care of her. Instead, I sent her away. I sent her to die in that cold, empty apartment. Margaret wiped her eyes. I write to her every day. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I love her. Tell her to come home. I know she can't read them. I know she's gone. But I can't stop. If I stop writing, it means I've accepted it. It means she's really gone forever. The apartment she died in, I said. It's my apartment now. That's where your letters are being delivered. Margaret looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. Is she there? Do you see her? I wanted to say no. Wanted to tell her there was nothing in my apartment except me and my furniture and normal living person things. But I thought about the feeling I sometimes got late at night. The sense of someone else present. The way shadows moved in ways they shouldn't. The cold spots near the window. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe. I left Margaret's house with an understanding I hadn't had before. She wasn't delusional. She wasn't stalking me. She was just a woman writing letters to her dead sister, letters she never mailed. And somehow, through whatever mechanism governs grief and guilt and love that transcends death, those letters were finding their way to the place Catherine died. I went home, looked at my apartment with new eyes. Catherine had died here, had spent her last days here, alone and scared and sick, and her sister had been writing to her for 10 years, unable to let go, unable to forgive herself. That night, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I sat at my kitchen table with a pen and paper, and I wrote a letter. Dear Margaret, this is Catherine. Not really. I'm still Emma, but I'm writing this for her, for both of you. I want you to know that she forgives you. She never blamed you for what happened. She understood that you were trying to help her, trying to save her. She knows you loved her. She knows you still love her. And she wants you to know that she's okay now. She's at peace. She's not in pain anymore. She's not cold or scared or alone. And she wants you to be at peace too. She wants you to stop writing letters to an empty apartment. She wants you to live, to garden, to cook, to sit on your porch and watch the world go by. To remember her with joy instead of guilt. This isn't really from Catherine, but I think if she could write to you, this is what she'd say. Love always, Catherine and Emma. I didn't know where to send it. Margaret had never put a return address on her letters, so I just addressed it to Margaret Wells and left it in the outgoing mail, hoped that whatever force had been delivering her letters to me could deliver mine to her. The next day, I checked my mailbox. No letter from Margaret. For the first time in weeks, there was nothing. The day after that, still nothing. The letters had stopped. I drove past Margaret's house a week later. She was in her garden, actually working this time, planting new flowers. She looked different, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. I never spoke to her again, never confirmed whether she'd received my letter or whether she'd just decided on her own to stop writing. Maybe both, maybe neither. Maybe Catherine had found a way to tell her directly. I've been living in this apartment for 6 months now. No more letters arrive. No more daily messages from a grieving sister to a dead woman. The mailbox only contains the usual junk mail and bills. But sometimes, late at night, I still feel it. That presence. That sense of someone else in the apartment with me. Not threatening. Not scary. Just there. Like someone sitting quietly in the corner, grateful to not be alone anymore. I've gotten used to it. Sometimes I talk to her, to Catherine, tell her about my day, about the neighbors, about the city. Small things, the kind of things you'd tell a roommate. I like to think she listens. I like to think she appreciates the company after spending so long alone. I found out more about her story through old records and articles. She'd struggled with addiction for years, had been in and out of rehab. Margaret had tried everything to help her. Tough love, enabling, therapy, medication. Nothing worked. The fight they'd had was just the final breaking point in years of struggle. Catherine had left that night and never looked back, had decided she'd rather die alone than burden her sister any longer, had found my apartment vacant and abandoned, and had made it her last refuge, had spent her final weeks here, probably knowing she was dying, probably welcoming it. No one had checked on her. No one had known she was there. She'd died surrounded by other people's walls, other people's lives happening all around her, but completely isolated, completely invisible, until Margaret's letters started arriving, until someone finally acknowledged she'd been here, until someone finally said her name in this space again. I think about that sometimes. How Catherine spent 10 years as a ghost in every sense. Dead, but not properly mourned. Gone, but not really remembered. Existing in some liminal space between being and not being. And Margaret kept her tethered here with those letters, kept her present through sheer force of love and guilt. Maybe my letter helped both of them, gave Catherine permission to move on, gave Margaret permission to stop punishing herself. Or maybe they're both still here in their own ways. Margaret in her garden with her memories, Catherine in this apartment with her quiet presence. I don't feel haunted. I feel accompanied. Like I'm taking care of something that needed taking care of. Like this apartment, this space where someone died alone and afraid, is finally being treated with the gentleness it deserved all along. To this day, I sleep better knowing Catherine's here, knowing she's not alone anymore, knowing that someone finally acknowledged her death, her life, her existence. And sometimes, when I'm writing late at night, I feel a cold spot near my shoulder, like someone looking over, reading what I'm working on. like someone who spent so much time being invisible is grateful to finally be seen. I hope Margaret is doing well. I hope she's forgiven herself. I hope she's living the life she wanted Catherine to live, full of small joys and quiet moments and the kind of peace that comes from letting go. And I hope Catherine, wherever she is now, knows that she was loved, that her sister never stopped thinking about her, that even in death, she wasn't forgotten. The letters have stopped coming, but the love they represented never really ended. It just transformed into something else, something that can exist in gardens and memories and cold spots in apartments where someone died but isn't quite gone. Letters sent to a name I didn't know, but now I do. Now I know Catherine Wells, know her story, know her sister's grief, know the weight of loving someone you couldn't save. And I carry that knowledge with me, a memorial for a woman who died alone, a witness to a love that transcended death, a living person in an apartment that holds more than just furniture and walls. It holds a story, a tragedy, an ending that isn't quite an ending. Catherine Wells lived here, died here, and in some ways, still exists here. Not haunting, just remaining, just being remembered. And that's enough. For both of us, I think that's finally enough. Story 3, The Dog Without a Leash. I started jogging in March, right after my 28th birthday, trying to get healthier, lose some weight, feel better about myself. The usual New Year's resolution stuff, just a few months late. My neighborhood in suburban Minneapolis had a nice trail system, paved paths winding through parks and alongside a creek. Perfect for someone just starting out. I'd go early in the morning before work, around 6 a.m. when the sun was just coming up. The trails were mostly empty that early. A few other joggers, the occasional person walking their dog, otherwise just me and the sound of my breathing and my shoes hitting the pavement. The first week was brutal. I could barely run for 5 minutes without having to walk, but I kept at it, went out every morning. By the second week, I was starting to build endurance, starting to actually enjoy it. That's when I first saw the dog. It was a Tuesday morning, early April. I was about a mile into my route, running through a section where the trail cut through dense trees. The dog was just sitting on the side of the path. A big dog, looked like a German Shepherd or maybe a Belgian Malinois. Dark fur, pointed ears, alert posture, no collar, no leash, no owner in sight. I slowed to a walk as I approached, didn't want to startle it. The dog watched me with an intensity that was a little unnerving. Didn't move, didn't bark, just sat there staring. "Hey, buddy," I said softly. "Where's your owner?" The dog didn't react, just kept staring at me with dark, intelligent eyes. I looked around for whoever might be with it. The trail was empty in both directions. Trees on both sides, no houses visible from this section. "You lost?" I took a step closer. The dog stood up. Not aggressive, just alert. Ready to move. It was big. If it stood on its hind legs, it would probably be as tall as me. Muscular, well-fed, didn't look like a stray. I pulled out my phone, thinking I'd call animal control. But before I could dial, the dog turned and trotted into the trees, disappeared into the underbrush without a sound. I stood there for a moment, then continued my run. Figured someone was probably nearby, had let their dog off leash despite the park rules. Not my problem. But the next morning, the dog was there again. Same spot, same position, sitting on the side of the trail like it was waiting for something. When I approached, it stood up, watched me pass, then followed. Not close, maybe 20 feet behind me, but definitely following. I could hear its footsteps on the pavement, the soft padding of paws keeping pace with me. I tried to ignore it, keep running. After about a quarter mile, I glanced back. The dog had stopped in the middle of the trail, was sitting again, watching me get farther away. When I looked back a second time, it was gone. This became a pattern. Every morning, The dog would be there, always in the same spot, always alone. It would watch me approach, then follow for a few hundred yards before stopping. Never got closer than 20 feet, never made a sound. Just followed, then let me go. I asked other joggers if they'd seen it. Most said no. One woman said she'd seen a big dog on the trail a few times, but figured it belonged to someone in the area. Probably lives in one of the houses near the park, she said. Some people let their dogs run free early in the morning when no one's around. But there were no houses near that section of trail, and the dog was always in the exact same spot, never wandering, never playing, never doing anything a normal dog would do, just sitting and waiting. After 2 weeks of this, I started getting annoyed. It was weird, and it was distracting. I couldn't focus on my run with this dog following me every morning. I decided to try a different route, see if I could avoid it. Thursday morning, I drove to a different trailhead on the other side of the park system. Started my run from there, going the opposite direction from my usual route. Different scenery, different path, no dog. I felt relieved. Maybe it had been territorial and I'd just been running through its regular spot. Problem solved. I finished my run, felt good, got ready for work. Everything was normal. Until Friday morning. I went back to my usual route, hoping the dog had moved on or found its owner. I got to that section of trail through the trees. The dog was there. Same spot. But this time, it wasn't just sitting. It was standing in the middle of the path, blocking my way, looking directly at me like it had been waiting. I stopped running, stood about 30 feet away. "You need to go home, buddy. Go on, get out of here." The dog didn't move. We stood there in a stalemate, me on one side of the trail, the dog on the other. In the early morning light, I could see it more clearly than before. Its fur was darker than I'd thought, almost black in some places. Its eyes were strange too, not brown like most dogs, almost yellow, like a wolf's eyes. Something about those eyes made me uncomfortable, made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I decided to walk around it, give it a wide berth by going off the trail into the grass. As I moved, the dog's head turned to follow me. Its body stayed motionless, but its head tracked my movement with an unnatural smoothness. I got past it, started jogging again, didn't look back for a while. When I finally did, the dog was following again. But this time it was closer, maybe 10 feet behind me, close enough that I could hear its breathing. I sped up. The dog sped up. I slowed down. The dog slowed down. It was matching my pace exactly, maintaining that 10-foot distance. I tried to tell myself it was just a friendly dog, that it probably just wanted attention. But friendly dogs don't move like this, don't follow like this, don't stare like this. I finished my run as fast as I could, practically sprinting the last half mile. Got to my car, jumped inside, locked the doors, looked back at the trail. The dog was sitting at the trailhead entrance, just sitting, watching my car, not panting, not moving, just watching. I drove away, checked my rearview mirror. The dog was still sitting there, a dark shape in the early morning light, watching me leave. I didn't run on Saturday. Told myself I needed a rest day, but really, I just didn't want to see that dog again. Sunday morning, I convinced myself I was being ridiculous. It was just a dog. A weird dog, sure, but just an animal. Maybe someone's poorly trained pet that had gotten loose. I'd report it to animal control, let them handle it. I went for my run. Got to that section of trail. No dog. The path was empty, just morning light filtering through the trees and the sound of birds waking up. I felt stupid for being scared. Continued my run, actually enjoyed it for the first time in days, made it through the whole trail without incident. On my way back, passing through that same section, I saw something that made me stop. There, on the side of the trail where the dog always sat, was a pile of bones. Old bones, yellowed with age. Animal bones. Looked like they'd been there for years. and arranged in a circle like someone or something had deliberately placed them that way. In the center of the circle was a dead bird. Fresh, still had blood on its feathers. Its neck was broken. I backed away slowly. This was getting too weird, too deliberate. This wasn't just a lost dog. Something else was going on. I turned to run back to my car. The dog was there, 30 feet down the trail, blocking my path. I hadn't heard it approach. It had just appeared, like it had been waiting for me to find the bones. We stared at each other, the dog's yellow eyes locked on mine, and I realized something that made my stomach drop. The dog wasn't breathing. Its chest wasn't moving. It was standing perfectly still, not panting, not shifting weight, not doing any of the small movements living things do. "What are you?" I whispered. The dog's mouth opened, not like a dog opening its mouth, more like something wearing a dog's skin and not quite remembering how dogs were supposed to move. Its jaw opened too wide, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp, too numerous. No sound came out, but I heard something anyway, not with my ears, in my head, a voice that wasn't a voice. "Run." I ran, faster than I'd ever run in my life. Didn't look back, didn't slow down, just ran. I could hear it behind me, not footsteps anymore, something else. Something that sounded like many feet instead of 4. Something that sounded wrong. I made it to my car, fumbled with my keys, got inside, looked at the trail entrance. Nothing there. No dog, no sound. Just empty trail and morning light. But on my windshield, there was something. A paw print. Fresh mud. Except I'd parked here 90 minutes ago, and the car had been clean. The print was on the inside of the windshield. I went to the park office Monday morning before work, told the ranger on duty about the dog, about the bones, about the whole weird situation. He listened, took notes, said he'd check it out. "Have there been any reports of strange dogs in the park?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not recently. We get the occasional lost pet, but usually owners find them pretty quick." He paused. "What did you say the dog looked like again?" "Big, dark fur, almost black. Yellow eyes, like a German shepherd, but off. Something wrong about it." The ranger's expression changed. "Yellow eyes, you said?" "Yeah. Why?" He was quiet for a moment, then pulled out a binder from under the desk, flipped through incident reports, found what he was looking for. 4 years ago, there was a series of attacks on this trail. 3 joggers reported being followed by a large dog that matched that description. Dark fur, yellow eyes, no collar or owner. What happened? Nothing came of it. We increased patrols, didn't find any dog. Reports stopped after a couple weeks. Everyone figured it was just a stray that moved on. He looked at me. But there was one more thing. A woman disappeared from this trail, Sarah Mitchell. She was a regular jogger, came here every morning. One day she just didn't come home. We searched for weeks, found her car at the trailhead, found her phone on the path about a mile in, but no sign of her. "And you think the dog had something to do with it?" "I think." He closed the binder. "I think you should use a different trail, at least for a while." I wanted to argue, wanted to say that was ridiculous, but I'd seen the way that dog moved, the way its jaw opened, the way it appeared and disappeared. I'd heard that voice in my head telling me to run. "Okay," I said, "I'll find somewhere else." But it didn't matter. Tuesday morning, I went to a different park. Different trail system entirely, 10 miles from my usual spot. Figured there was no way the dog could follow me there. I started my run. The trail was nice, more open, better maintained. I felt safe. Felt like I'd escaped whatever that thing was. Half a mile in, I saw it, sitting on the side of the trail. Same position, same unnatural stillness. The dog. It had found me, and behind it, standing in the trees, I saw something else. A figure, too far away to see clearly, but definitely human-shaped, wearing what looked like jogging clothes, standing completely motionless, the same way the dog was motionless. I pulled out my phone, zoomed in with my camera. The figure was a woman. Pale skin, dark hair matted and dirty, jogging clothes torn and stained. She was staring at me with the same yellow eyes as the dog. Sarah Mitchell, the woman who disappeared 4 years ago, still here, still on the trail, still running with whatever that dog was. The dog stood up, started walking toward me, not trotting, not running, just walking with that too smooth movement. And behind it, the woman started walking too, both of them moving in perfect synchronization. I backed away. The dog stopped, sat down again. The woman stopped too, mimicking the dog's position exactly. The voice in my head came back, clearer this time. Every morning, you have to run every morning. That's the rule. Once you start, you can't stop. Once we see you, you're part of the trail. I'll stop, I said out loud. I'll never come back. I'll never jog again. Too late. We've already seen you. You're already running with us. You just don't know it yet. I looked at Sarah Mitchell's body, because that's what it was, I realized. A body. Something dead wearing her skin, using her shape, trapped in whatever ritual this thing had created. She'd been a regular jogger. She'd run every morning. And when she tried to stop, when she tried to break the pattern, the dog had taken her. How many? I asked. How many are there? The trees behind Sarah rustled. More figures emerged. 5, 6, 7 of them. All in jogging clothes, all with yellow eyes, all standing in perfect unison. Decades of runners who'd made the mistake of running on this trail every morning, who'd established a pattern, who'd become part of whatever the dog was collecting. Every morning, the voice repeated, that's the rule. Miss a morning, and you join us, forever running, forever on the trail, forever with the dog. That was 3 months ago. I've been running every morning since. I don't have a choice. The one day I tried to skip, I woke up on the trail at 6 a.m. Don't remember leaving my house. Don't remember getting in my car. Just opened my eyes and I was there, on the path, with the dog sitting 10 feet away watching me. I ran that day, and every day since. I can't stop. If I stop, I become like Sarah, like the others. Another body with yellow eyes, another figure standing in the trees, waiting for the next runner to trap. I've tried everything. Moved to a different neighborhood, still wake up on the trail at 6 a.m. Stayed at a hotel across town, still wake up on the trail. Flew to visit my parents in California for a week, woke up on the trail in Minneapolis, no memory of how I got there. The dog is always there, always watching, always making sure I run. And every morning, I pass the others, the runners who came before me. They watch with their yellow eyes, waiting, hoping I'll miss a day, hoping I'll join them so they won't be alone. I've lost weight. I'm in the best shape of my life, actually. Running every single day for 3 months will do that. But I'm tired. So tired. My legs ache constantly. I have injuries that won't heal because I can't rest. I can barely work, barely function. My life has become nothing but running. My friends think I'm obsessed. My family is worried. They keep saying I need to take a break, that I'm overdoing it. But I can't tell them the truth. They wouldn't believe me. And even if they did, they couldn't help. The park rangers closed that section of trail last week. Too many reports of strange sightings, they said. Too many joggers feeling uncomfortable. But it doesn't matter if the trail is closed. I still end up there every morning. Still have to run it. The dog doesn't care about park regulations. Last week I saw someone else on the trail. A new jogger, a young guy, maybe 25. He was running the same section every morning, building a pattern, building a routine. The dog was watching him. I tried to warn him, ran up beside him, told him to stop coming here, to break his pattern before it was too late. He looked at me like I was crazy, told me to leave him alone, kept running. This morning, he wasn't on the trail. His car was at the trailhead, but he wasn't running. The dog was sitting in its usual spot, and behind it, standing in the trees with the others, was a new figure. Same jogging clothes the guy had been wearing, same yellow eyes. He'd missed a morning. Now he's part of the trail, forever, and I'm still running. Every morning at 6 a.m., I'm on that trail, whether I want to be or not, running past the dog that isn't a dog, running past the bodies that aren't quite alive, running because the alternative is joining them. I don't know what the dog is, a spirit, a demon, something else, entirely. Something that feeds on patterns, on routines, on the dedication of people trying to improve themselves. Something that traps people in their habits until the habits become eternal. I've tried to research it. Found old stories about black dogs that appear on roads and trails. Harbingers of death, omens of doom. Creatures that follow travelers and mark them for tragedy. But none of the stories mention this. The way it traps people in patterns, forces them to repeat the same route forever. Maybe I'm the first to figure it out. Or maybe everyone else who figured it out is standing in those trees with yellow eyes, long past the point of being able to warn anyone. To anyone reading this, if you start a new routine, if you begin jogging the same trail every morning, be careful, watch for the dog. If you see it once, change your route. If you see it twice, stop running entirely. Break the pattern before it traps you. Because once you've established the routine, once the dog has learned your schedule, you can't stop. You'll run every morning for the rest of your life. And when you can't run anymore, when your body finally gives out, you'll keep running anyway, just in a different form, with yellow eyes and an endless, mindless dedication to the trail. I'm writing this at 5:47 a.m. I have 13 minutes before I'll wake up on the trail, whether I'm asleep in my bed or sitting here at my computer. 13 minutes before I have to run again. The dog is probably already waiting. It's always waiting. Patient and tireless and eternal. I'm so tired of running, but I'm more afraid of stopping, of joining the others, of standing in those trees with yellow eyes, watching the next jogger make the same mistake I made. So I'll keep running, every morning, forever. And if you ever see me on a trail somewhere, a figure standing too still in the trees with yellow eyes, you'll know I finally missed a morning. You'll know the dog finally got me, and you should run. Not as exercise, not as routine, just run and never come back. Because the dog without a leash is always looking for new runners, new patterns to trap, new people to join its eternal morning jog. And once it sees you, it never forgets. It's 5:58 a.m. now. I can already feel it pulling me, the compulsion to run, the need to be on that trail. In 2 minutes, I'll be there, standing at the trailhead with my running shoes on, ready to start again. The dog is waiting. It's always waiting. And I have to run. I have to run. I have to run. I have to run. See you on the trail. Story 4. The window across the street wasn't mine. My apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building in Brooklyn, right on the corner where 2 residential streets met. The rent was reasonable for the area, the neighborhood was safe, and I had a decent view from my living room window. Across the street, maybe 50 feet away, stood another apartment building, nearly identical to mine. Same red brick, same fire escapes, same layout, just mirrored. I moved in during August, right after my 26th birthday. The apartment was small, studio with a separate kitchen area, but it was mine. First place I'd lived alone, no roommates, no parents. I felt like a real adult for the first time. The living room window faced the street and the building across from me. I'd set up my couch underneath it, angled so I could watch TV but also look outside when I wanted. Cities never really sleep, and I liked watching the street at night. People walking dogs, couples heading home from dates, the occasional cab rolling past. During the day, I worked from home doing freelance graphic design. I'd take breaks from my laptop to stare out the window, let my eyes rest on something farther away than my screen. The building across the street had the same window layout as mine. I could see directly into the apartment that was a mirror image of my own. Third floor, corner unit, same position. That apartment's curtains were always drawn, heavy blackout curtains that never moved. In 3 weeks of living there, I never saw them open, never saw any light behind them, never saw any indication someone lived there at all. I figured it was empty, or maybe someone who worked nights and slept during the day. Then, on a Thursday night in early September, I saw the curtains open. It was around 11 p.m. I was on my couch watching TV, and I happened to glance out the window during a commercial. The curtains across the street were pulled back, and I could see into the apartment for the first time. It looked exactly like mine. Same layout. You could see straight through to the kitchen area in the back, the same narrow hallway leading to what I assumed was the bathroom. The furniture was arranged similarly, too. Couch under the window, small dining table to the left, bookshelf against the wall. But what made me sit up and really look was the person standing in the window. A woman around my age, with dark hair. She was just standing there, looking out at the street, looking in my direction. I felt weird about it, like I was invading her privacy by looking into her apartment. I turned away, went back to my show. When I glanced over again a few minutes later, the curtains were closed. The next night, Friday, the curtains were open again around the same time. The woman was there, standing in the window. This time, I looked more carefully, trying not to be obvious about it. She was wearing dark clothes, her hair down around her shoulders. She stood very still, just looking out. I noticed something else. Her furniture wasn't just similar to mine. It was identical. Same gray couch, same black bookshelf, same kitchen table. Even the art on the walls looked like what I had. The framed print of the Brooklyn Bridge, the abstract geometric poster. That was weird. What were the odds someone across the street would have the exact same taste in furniture and decor? Over the weekend, I found myself watching her window more. The curtains would open every night around 11 p.m. She'd stand there for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Then the curtains would close. She never seemed to do anything else, just stood and looked out. On Sunday night, I grabbed my phone and zoomed in with the camera, trying to see her face more clearly. The image was grainy, but something about it bothered me. She looked familiar in a way I couldn't place. Monday morning, I was making coffee in my kitchen when I happened to look across the street. It was bright daylight, maybe 8 a.m. The curtains in that apartment were open. I could see inside clearly for the first time in natural light. My stomach dropped. The apartment didn't just look like mine. It was exactly like mine. Same furniture in the exact same positions. Same items on the bookshelf. Same lamp on the side table. Even the mug on the coffee table. I could see it was the same blue ceramic mug I'd been drinking from the night before. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't similar taste. Someone had recreated my apartment across the street. I stood in my kitchen, coffee pot in hand, staring across the street with my heart hammering. Then I saw a movement. The woman walked into frame. She was wearing pajamas, gray t-shirt and black shorts. The same pajamas I'd worn to bed last night. She walked to her kitchen, started making coffee, moved through the space the exact same way I'd just moved through mine, reached for the cabinet where the mugs were kept, the same cabinet I'd reached for 2 minutes ago. I backed away from my window, feeling sick. This wasn't possible. Was I seeing my own reflection somehow? But no, the buildings were 50 feet apart. There was no way. And the woman's hair was longer than mine, darker. But she moved like me, stood like me, had my apartment, my furniture, my clothes. I couldn't focus on work. Spent the whole day going to my window, looking across the street. The curtains stayed open all day. I watched the woman move through her apartment, my apartment, doing normal things, working on a laptop at the dining table, making lunch, stretching in the living room like she was doing yoga. Everything she did, I'd done. The same routine I followed. Work at the table, make lunch around noon, do yoga to break up the day. I was watching myself, or something that was pretending to be me. Around 5 p.m., I saw her get up from the table and walk toward her window. She stood there, looking directly at my building, looking at my apartment, looking at me. I stepped back from my window, heart racing. When I carefully looked again, she was still there, still staring. I couldn't see her face clearly from this distance, but I could feel her looking at me, watching me the same way I'd been watching her. Then she raised her hand, slowly, deliberately, pressed her palm against the glass. I didn't move, couldn't move, just stood frozen in my apartment, watching this woman across the street mirror my life, and now acknowledge that she knew I was watching. My phone rang, making me jump. I grabbed it off the couch. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Hello? Breathing on the other end. Soft, steady breathing. Then a voice, my voice, whispered, I can see you. I dropped the phone, looked back at the window across the street. The woman was still there, her hand pressed to the glass. She was holding something to her ear, a phone. She'd called me from across the street, with my voice. I ran to my door, checked that it was locked. Deadbolt, chain, everything. Closed all my curtains, blocked out the view of the street. Sat on my couch in the darkness of my apartment, trying to breathe, trying to think. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. Some kind of elaborate prank. But how? How would someone get my phone number? How would they know my routine, my furniture, my clothes? I called my best friend, Maya, told her everything, talking fast, probably sounding insane. Okay, slow down, she said. You're saying someone across the street has decorated their apartment exactly like yours? Yes. And she looks like me, moves like me. She called me with my voice. With your voice. Like she sounds like you. Exactly like me. Maya, I'm freaking out. Have you called the police? And tell them what? Someone across the street is... what? Existing? They haven't done anything illegal. They're just in their own apartment. Maya was quiet for a moment. This is really weird, Em. Like stalker level weird. At minimum, you should document everything, take photos, keep a record, and maybe you should stay somewhere else tonight. Stay with me. I wanted to, but part of me felt like leaving would mean admitting this was really happening. If I stayed, kept my curtains closed, went about my normal night, maybe in the morning it would all make sense somehow. I'll be okay, I lied. I've got good locks. I'll call you if anything else happens. After we hung up, I sat in the dark, listened to the sounds of the building, footsteps from the apartment above, voices in the hallway, the distant sound of traffic. Normal sounds. My phone sat on the couch next to me, screen dark. It rang again, same unknown number. I stared at it, watching it vibrate and light up. Let it ring and ring until it went to voicemail. A minute later, I got a voicemail notification. With shaking hands, I played it. My voice, whispering through the speaker, "Why won't you wave back?" I waved. You should wave. That's what neighbors do. We're neighbors now. Same apartment, same street, same life. You should wave back. It's polite. I deleted the voicemail, blocked the number, turned my phone face down, tried to convince myself this would be over in the morning. I didn't sleep. Spent the whole night sitting on my couch, lights off, listening. Around 3 a.m., I heard something that made my blood freeze. A sound from outside my window, like someone tapping on the glass. Tap, tap, tap. I was 3 floors up. No fire escape outside my living room window. No way for someone to be out there. But the tapping continued. Soft, persistent, rhythmic. Tap, tap, tap. I couldn't help it. I had to look. Slowly, I moved to the edge of my curtain, pulled it back just an inch, looked out at the dark street below, the orange glow of streetlights. Across the street, in the window that mirrored mine, the woman stood. Her curtains were open. She was pressed against the glass, staring directly at my window. Even from this distance, even in the dark, I could see her smiling. She raised her hand, knocked on her window, 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. The sound came from my window, like her knocking was somehow traveling across the space between us, like our windows were connected. She mouthed something. I couldn't hear it, but I could read her lips. Let me in. I dropped the curtain, backed away. The tapping stopped. I stood in the middle of my dark apartment, shaking, trying to decide what to do. My phone lit up. Text message from the unknown number I'd blocked, but it came through anyway. You can't block me. We're the same. Where you go, I go. What you do, I do. I've been watching you since you moved in, learning you, becoming you. And now I'm ready. Another text. I think I'll come over tomorrow. Visit in person. See my apartment through your eyes. Would you like that? Another text. Don't bother calling the police. What would you tell them? That you're scared of yourself? I grabbed my laptop, started searching. The building across the street. Maybe I could find out who lived there, who owned that apartment. Found the building's address, searched property records. The apartment that mirrored mine was listed as vacant. Had been vacant for 6 months. No current tenant. But someone was there. I'd seen her. She'd called me. She was real. Unless she wasn't. I searched for anything about doppelgangers, about seeing yourself, about people experiencing what I was experiencing. Found forums, paranormal websites, stories that sounded disturbingly similar to mine. People who'd seen themselves across the street, in mirrors, in reflections that didn't match. People who'd watched their doubles slowly take over their lives. One post stood out from 2 years ago. If you see your double, don't engage. Don't acknowledge it. The more attention you give it, the more real it becomes. It feeds on recognition. Eventually, it will try to replace you. Move away. Change your routine. Break the pattern. It's the only way. The post had dozens of replies, all from people sharing similar experiences. But the original poster never replied again. Their account showed no activity after that single post. I looked at the time. 4:47 a.m., almost morning. I made a decision. When the sun came up, I was leaving, packing a bag, going to Maya's, staying there until I could figure out what to do. Maybe break my lease, find a new place. Anything to get away from this apartment, this street, this window. I started packing immediately, grabbed a duffel bag, threw in clothes, toiletries, laptop, essentials. Kept the curtains closed, tried not to think about the woman across the street watching, knowing I was preparing to run. At 6:30 a.m., the sun was up. I grabbed my bag, checked the peephole, empty hallway, unlocked my door, stepped out, locked it behind me with shaking hands. The hallway was quiet. I walked quickly to the stairs, didn't wait for the elevator. Down 3 flights, through the lobby, out to the street. The morning air was cool, fresh, normal. I looked up at my building, at my window on the 3rd floor. Curtains still closed. Then I looked across the street, at the building that mirrored mine, at the window that mirrored my window. The curtains were open. The woman stood there watching me leave. She was wearing the same clothes I was wearing, jeans and a gray hoodie, holding the same duffel bag I was holding, and she was waving, slow, deliberate waves. Goodbye. I turned and ran. I stayed at Maya's for 3 days, refused to go back to my apartment. She helped me arrange for movers to pack up my stuff while I waited outside on the street. I broke my lease, lost my security deposit, didn't care. I needed out. Maya asked me repeatedly what had happened, why I was so scared. I told her some of it, but not everything. How could I explain that I'd seen myself across the street, that my double had called me, texted me, threatened to visit? She'd think I'd had a breakdown. Maybe I had. Maybe the stress of living alone for the first time, working from home, isolation. Maybe it had gotten to me. Maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. But I hadn't imagined the phone calls. I still had the blocked number in my call history. Still had those text messages, even though I'd deleted them. My phone company could prove they existed. On the 4th day, movers brought my stuff to a new apartment in Queens. Different neighborhood, different building, different setup. 5th floor, window facing a courtyard instead of the street. No way to see into other apartments. No way for anyone to mirror mine. I unpacked slowly, carefully. Set up my furniture in completely different positions than I'd had in Brooklyn. Bought new curtains, different colors. Changed my routine. Worked from a coffee shop instead of home. Ate lunch at different times. Stopped doing yoga in my living room. Break the pattern, that post had said. Don't let it follow you. For 2 weeks, everything was fine. No phone calls, no texts, no sightings. I started to relax, started to think maybe I'd escaped whatever that was. Maybe it had been tied to that specific apartment, that specific street. Maybe it couldn't follow me here. Then, on a Tuesday night, I was watching TV. Happened to glance at my window, the one facing the interior courtyard. Looked across to the building on the other side, maybe 30 feet away. 5th floor, window directly across from mine. Curtains I'd never paid attention to before were open. A woman stood in the window. Dark hair, familiar build, wearing clothes I'd worn last week. She saw me looking, raised her hand, pressed it against the glass. My phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Grabbed my laptop, looked up the building across the courtyard. Found the floor plan, found the apartment that faced mine. Looked up the tenant. The lease was under my name. Name, same spelling, even the same birthday listed on the application. But I'd never applied to live in that building. I lived here. I'd signed a lease, had proof. The woman in the window was still there, still watching, still waiting. And I understood then. It didn't matter where I went. It had learned me too well. Knew my routines, my habits, my choices. Anywhere I moved, it could follow. Any apartment I chose, it could mirror. It was me, after all. It knew what I'd do before I did it. I closed my curtains, locked my door, sat in the dark and tried to think. My phone kept ringing. I turned it off. But even in the silence, I could feel her there, across the courtyard, waiting, patient. That night, I had a horrible thought. What if there had never been a woman across the street? What if, somehow, I'd been looking at a reflection all along? Some trick of light, some distortion, some glitch that let me see into my own apartment from the outside? What if the person in that window had always been me? What if I was the double? I started seeing a therapist, told her about the woman in the window, the phone calls, the feeling of being watched. She suggested anxiety, possible dissociative episodes, the stress of major life changes. Prescribed medication, talked about coping strategies. The medication helped. The calls stopped. I stopped seeing the woman in windows across from me. Started sleeping better, eating regularly, going out with friends. For 3 months I was fine. Convinced myself it had been a mental health crisis, nothing supernatural or impossible, just my brain struggling with isolation and change. Then last week, I was scrolling through Instagram, saw a post from someone I'd gone to college with, someone I barely remembered. She'd posted a photo from her apartment, a mirror selfie showing her living room in the background. I recognized that apartment. Same layout as my first place in Brooklyn. Third floor corner unit, window facing the street. The caption read, "Love my new place. Best view in the neighborhood." And in the window behind her, visible in the reflection, standing on the street outside looking up, I could see someone. A woman with dark hair, wearing clothes I'd worn yesterday. She was looking up at that window, the same window I'd looked out from, the window where I'd first seen her. She'd found a new apartment to mirror, a new person to learn, a new life to slowly take over. I wanted to warn my old classmate, send her a message, tell her to close her curtains, to move, to run. But what would I say? And would she believe me? Would anyone? I think about her sometimes, the woman in the window, the double, the thing that learned to be me. I wonder if she's still out there, still finding apartments across from unsuspecting people, still learning their lives and routines and habits. I wonder how many of her there are now, how many people she's studied, how many lives she's copied. And sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder if I really escaped at all. If the person sitting here, typing this, living this life, if I'm really me, or if I'm her, the double. And somewhere, the real me is reading this, recognizing her own story, realizing too late that we've already switched places. How would you know if you were the copy instead of the original? Would you feel different? Would you remember being someone else? Or would you just go on living, thinking you were real, never knowing you were the reflection? I look in mirrors now and I'm never quite sure what I'm seeing. Is that me? Or is that her, looking back, wearing my face, living my life, being me better than I ever could? The window across the street wasn't mine, but maybe this face isn't either. Maybe this whole life isn't mine anymore. Maybe it never was. And if you're reading this, if you live in an apartment with a window that faces another building, another apartment that mirrors yours, check the window across from you. Look carefully. Is someone standing there? Are they watching? Do they look familiar? Are they wearing your clothes? Close your curtains. Change your routine. Break the pattern. And whatever you do, don't wave back. Because once you acknowledge them, once you let them know you see them, they become real. They become you. And you become the one standing in the window across the street. The one nobody believes in. The one nobody can see. The double. I know because I'm standing in my window right now, looking across the courtyard at my apartment, watching myself type this, watching me live my life, and I can't remember which one I am anymore. Am I the one typing or the one watching? Does it even matter? The window across the street wasn't mine, but now every window is, every reflection, every mirror, every glass surface that shows me back to myself. I'm everywhere now, watching, learning, becoming. And you might be too. Check your window, see if I'm there, see if you're there, wave back, it's polite, that's what neighbors do. Story 5. Whispers through the air vent. The apartment was cheap for a reason. Studio in Chicago, Logan Square area, 4th floor of a 6-story building from the 1960s. The landlord had been upfront about the issues. Old radiators that clanked, thin walls, sketchy water pressure. But at $850 a month with utilities included, I wasn't in a position to be picky. I was 23, working retail, barely making ends meet. I moved in on a Saturday in January. Winter in Chicago is brutal, and the building's heating system worked overtime. The radiator in my studio hissed and banged constantly, but it kept the place warm. The walls were thin enough that I could hear my neighbors, couple arguing to my left, someone's TV too loud above me, bass from a stereo somewhere below. But the worst was the air vent. It was in the corner near my bed, an old metal grate in the wall about a foot off the floor, the kind that connected to the building's central ventilation system. I noticed it the first night when I was trying to fall asleep. The vent carried sound from somewhere in the building. Conversations I couldn't quite make out. Distant music. The general noise of people living their lives in too close quarters. I got used to it after a few days. The building noise became white noise. I learned to tune it out. Then, about 2 weeks after moving in, I started hearing the whispers. It was late, maybe 2 a.m. I'd woken up thirsty, was lying in bed debating whether to get up for water. That's when I heard it, a voice coming through the air vent. Soft, indistinct, but definitely someone talking. Not the normal building sounds. This was different. Closer. Like someone was speaking directly into the vent from somewhere nearby. I sat up, listened closer. It was a woman's voice, whispering urgently, like she was afraid of being overheard. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. Frightened, desperate. After a minute, the whispering stopped. I waited, listening. Nothing. Just the hum of the heating system. I chalked it up to sound traveling weird through the vents. Someone having a late-night conversation in another apartment, their voice carrying through the ductwork. Old buildings did that. Sound bounced around in unexpected ways. But the next night, I heard it again. Same time, around 2 a.m. Same desperate whispering. This time I got out of bed, crouched by the vent, pressed my ear against the cold metal grate. The voice was clearer up close. A woman, definitely, young sounding. And she was saying the same thing over and over. Please, please help me. I can't get out. Please. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my phone, used the flashlight to peer through the vent grate. Couldn't see anything, just darkness and the metal shaft of the duct disappearing into the wall. Hello? I called into the vent. Are you okay? Where are you? The whispering stopped immediately. Silence. Then, after a long pause, the voice came back, louder now, more urgent. Can you hear me? Oh God, can you actually hear me? Yes! I can hear you. Where are you? Do you need help? I don't know where I am. It's dark. So dark. I can't move. I can't. The voice broke off into sobbing. Please help me. Please get me out. I stood up fast, my heart racing. Someone was trapped somewhere in the building, in the walls, in the ductwork, somewhere. I needed to call for help. I dialed 911, explained the situation to the dispatcher. She sounded skeptical but said she'd send someone to check it out. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers showed up. They looked tired, annoyed to be there. I explained about the voice in the vent, how someone was trapped and needed help. They humored me, crouched by the vent, listened. Nothing. No voice. Just the quiet hum of the heating system. I heard her, I insisted. She was crying, asking for help. She said she couldn't get out. One officer, older guy with gray hair, stood up, dusted off his knees. Ma'am, these old buildings have ductwork that carries sound from all over. You probably heard someone in another apartment. TV show, maybe, or someone on the phone. It wasn't a TV. She was talking to me. She responded when I called out. The younger officer checked the grate, pulled it off the wall, shined his flashlight into the duct. Vent looks normal, opens into the main ventilation shaft. No one could fit in here anyway. It's maybe 8 inches wide. They took my information, told me to call back if I heard it again, and left. I could tell they thought I was wasting their time. Some crazy tenant hearing things in an old building. But I knew what I'd heard. That voice had been real. Someone was in trouble. I went to my landlord the next day, Mr. Kowalski, an old Polish guy who'd owned the building for 30 years. I found him in the basement, working on the boiler. Mr. Kowalski, I need to ask you something. Has anyone ever gotten stuck in the ventilation system? Like, trapped in the ducts? He looked up from the boiler, wiped his greasy hands on a rag. Stuck in the ducts? Number. Why? I explained about the voice. He listened, his expression unreadable. "You're in 4C, right?" he said finally. "Yeah." He was quiet for a moment. "That apartment has a history. People hear things. You're the third tenant this year." "What do you mean, a history?" He sighed, sat down on an overturned bucket. 5 years ago, a woman lived in your apartment, Jessica Ramirez. Nice girl, mid-20s, worked as a teacher. She disappeared. Disappeared? January 2019. She called 911 one night, said someone had broken into her apartment. Police came, checked everything. No signs of forced entry, no one there. They thought she was mistaken. Week later, her family reported her missing. Never found her. No body, no evidence of foul play, just gone. My skin went cold. What apartment was she in? 4C, your apartment. I stood there in the basement, trying to process this. And you didn't think to mention this when I signed the lease? No law says I have to. No crime occurred in the apartment as far as police are concerned. She was just a missing person. Could have run away. Could have had an accident somewhere else. It had nothing to do with the apartment legally. But other tenants heard things? He nodded slowly. 2 tenants since Jessica. Both left within weeks. Both complained about voices in the vents, late at night, crying, whispering. I thought they were just spooked by the story, imagining things. He looked at me. "You're saying you heard it too?" "I heard someone begging for help, saying she was trapped." Mr. Kowalski stood up, walked to a filing cabinet in the corner, pulled out a folder, flipped through papers, found what he was looking for, a police report from January 2019. "This is from the night Jessica called 911, read the transcript." I took the paper, read the typed record of her 911 call. "There's someone in my apartment. I can hear them. They're in the walls. They're trying to get to me. Please send someone." The dispatcher asked her location, asked her to describe the intruder. Jessica's response: "I can hear them breathing. In the vents. They're coming through the vents. Please hurry." Police arrived 9 minutes later, found the apartment empty. Jessica was there, terrified, insisting someone was in the walls. They searched, found nothing, told her to call if anything else happened. She was reported missing 6 days later. Her apartment was locked from the inside. No signs of struggle. Purse, phone, keys, all left behind. She'd simply vanished. "Where do you think she went?" I asked quietly. Mr. Kowalski took the paper back, filed it away. "I don't know. Police investigated, but with no evidence, no body, nothing to work with." He shrugged. "They assumed she left on her own, started a new life somewhere. People do that sometimes. But you don't believe that." "I believe something happened in that apartment. I believe she was scared of something real. And I believe whatever scared her is still there. I should have moved out. Should have broken my lease, found somewhere else, anywhere else. But I couldn't afford to. I'd paid first and last month's rent plus security deposit. I was locked in financially. And besides, it was just a voice, right? Just sounds in an old building. Nothing that could actually hurt me. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe Jessica had some kind of mental breakdown. Maybe she'd been hearing things that weren't there, got so scared she ran away and never came back. Maybe the other tenants had known her story and psyched themselves into hearing things too. But every night around 2 a.m., the whispering came back. Always the same voice. Always the same desperate pleading. "Please help me. I'm trapped. It's so dark. I can't get out." I stopped answering, stopped acknowledging it. Put in earplugs, tried to sleep through it. But I could still hear it, muffled, but present. And the voice was getting louder, more insistent. After a week of this, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone, started recording when the whispers began, held the microphone up to the vent, captured several minutes of audio. In the morning, I listened to the recording. My voice was clear when I'd moved around the room, but when the whispering should have been, nothing. Just static. Just the sound of the heating system humming. The voice wasn't on the recording, even though I'd heard it clearly. Even though it had been loud enough to keep me awake. I played the recording for my coworker, Sarah, asked her if she heard anything unusual. She listened, shook her head. Just sounds like a vent. What am I supposed to be hearing? The whispering. The woman asking for help. I don't hear any whispering. But I could hear it. Even in the recording where it shouldn't be, I could hear it. Which meant either the recording wasn't capturing it, or I was hearing something that only existed in my head, or something that only existed for me. That night, I decided to do something different. Instead of ignoring the whispers, I'd follow them. If the voice was coming through the vent, maybe I could trace it back to wherever it originated. Find out which apartment, which duct, where the sound was actually coming from. At 2 a.m., the whisper started right on schedule. I grabbed my phone, used the flashlight, and headed out into the hallway. The building was quiet, everyone asleep. I stood in the hallway, listened. Nothing. The voice was only audible from inside my apartment. I went back in, put my ear to the vent again. The voice was there, clear as ever. Please. I'm trapped. Help me. Where are you? I asked. Tell me where you are and I'll find you. A pause. Then, I don't know. Dark, cold. I can't move my arms. Something's holding me. Please, you have to get me out. What's your name? Another pause. Longer this time. When the voice came back, it sounded confused. I don't remember. Why can't I remember my name? My hands were shaking. Is your name Jessica? Jessica Ramirez. The response was immediate, desperate. Yes. Yes, that's my name. Jessica, how did you know? Do you know me? Jessica, you disappeared 5 years ago. You called 911 saying someone broke in, and then you vanished. Everyone's been looking for you. 5 years? Number. No, that's not right. It was just last night. I heard something in the walls. I called for help, and then, the voice trailed off, confused. Where am I? Why is it so dark? I sat on the floor by the vent, my mind racing. Jessica, I'm in your old apartment, 4C. Where did you go? What happened after you called 911? I don't remember. I was waiting for the police. I heard something in the vent, scratching, like something trying to get through. I looked into the vent and silence. Then I saw eyes. There were eyes in the vent, staring at me. And then nothing. Just darkness. Just this. Just what? Where are you? I'm in the walls. I'm stuck in the walls. I can't move. I can't see. I can only hear. Only hear people in my apartment. Only hear them living where I used to live. I called the police again. This time I told them everything. Jessica's disappearance, the whispers, what the voice had told me. They were more interested this time, but ultimately said there wasn't much they could do. They'd already investigated Jessica's disappearance thoroughly. No evidence of foul play, no indication she was still in the building. If you want, we can have someone check the walls, the detective said. But it's an old building. Tearing into the walls, looking for, what? A voice. That's not something we can justify without more concrete evidence. I contacted Jessica's family, found her sister on Facebook, sent a message explaining who I was and what I'd been hearing. She called me within an hour, crying. We knew something happened in that apartment, she said. Jess wouldn't just disappear. She was happy. She loved her job. She had no reason to run away. But the police kept saying there was no evidence, that she probably just left. I think she's still here, I said quietly. I think something happened to her in the walls, in the ventilation system. But the police checked. They searched the whole building. I know, but maybe they didn't look thoroughly enough. Maybe they missed something. Jessica's sister, Maria, came to visit the apartment the next day, brought her husband. They stood in my studio, stared at the vent. I explained about the timing, about how the voice only appeared around 2 a.m. They wanted to wait, to hear it themselves. We sat there in the dark, the three of us, waiting. When 2 a.m. came, the whispers started. I could hear them clearly. Jessica's desperate pleas for help. "Do you hear that?" I asked. Maria and her husband looked at each other. "Hear what?" she said. "The whispering. She's talking right now." They both listened intently. "I don't hear anything," Maria said, her voice breaking. "Just the heating system." But I could hear Jessica, hear her asking why no one was helping, hear her crying that she'd been trapped so long. "She's here," I said. "I know you can't hear her, but she's here. She's been here the whole time." Maria's husband went to the vent, pulled off the grate with a screwdriver, shined his phone light into the duct. The shaft extended about 3 feet into the wall, then connected to a larger ventilation pipe. Nothing unusual. Nowhere someone could be trapped. "Maybe we should open the walls," Maria said. "Hire someone to tear out the drywall, check behind everything." "I'll pay for it," I said. "If the landlord won't approve it, I'll pay for repairs myself." Mr. Kowalski wasn't happy about it, but Maria's lawyer sent him a letter citing the unsolved disappearance and requesting access for a private investigation. He agreed rather than deal with potential legal issues. The contractor came 2 days later, a team of 3 guys with sledgehammers and crowbars. They started with the wall where the vent was located, tore out the drywall, exposed the studs and insulation, the ductwork running through the cavities. Nothing. Empty spaces, old wood, fiberglass insulation. No signs of anything unusual. They checked the duct itself. It ran from my apartment down into the main shaft in the wall, connected to the central system. Nowhere someone could fit. Nowhere someone could be trapped. They tore out more wall, checked behind the bathroom, behind the kitchen, every cavity in the apartment. Found old mouse dropping, some water damage, normal old building issues. But no Jessica. No evidence she'd ever been in the walls. The contractor stood in my demolished apartment, surrounded by torn drywall and exposed beams. "There's nothing here. I'm sorry. Whatever you heard, it wasn't coming from inside these walls." But that night, after they'd left, after Maria and her husband had gone home disappointed and heartbroken, I heard the whispers again. Louder now, angrier. "Why did you do that? Why did you tear everything apart? Now it's worse. Now it's so much worse. They're angry. The ones in the walls. They're angry you tried to find me." "What ones? What are you talking about?" "The others. The ones who took me. The ones who live in the spaces between. You weren't supposed to look. You weren't supposed to try. Now they know you can hear me. Now they'll come for you too." I tried to leave, packed a bag, headed for the door, but when I opened it, the hallway outside looked wrong. The lights were dimmer, flickering. The walls seemed farther apart than they should be. And at the end of the hall, standing in the shadows, I saw something. A figure, tall, impossibly thin. It stood there, watching me, not moving, just watching. I slammed the door, locked it, backed away. The whispers from the vent were growing louder, more frantic. "They're coming. I told you. They know you can hear me now. They know you're aware. Run. Please run. Don't let them take you like they took me." I grabbed my phone, tried to call for help. No signal. The screen glitched, showed static, went dark. When it came back on, there was a message. "You can't leave. Not now. You're one of us now. The lights in my apartment flickered, the walls creaked, and I heard new sounds. Not just Jessica's voice anymore. Multiple voices, dozens of them, all whispering through the vents, through the walls, through the spaces between. Help us. We're trapped. Can't get out. So dark, so cold. Help us. The voices overlapped, created a chorus of desperation. And I understood. Jessica wasn't the only one. She was just the most recent. There were others. People who'd lived in this building over the decades. People who'd disappeared. People who'd gotten trapped in whatever existed in the walls, in the ventilation system, in the spaces between the physical building. The figure from the hallway was at my door now. I could hear scratching on the other side. Slow, deliberate scratching, like something with two long fingers trying to get in. I ran to the window. 4th floor. Too high to jump. Fire escape on the other side of the building. I'd have to go through the hallway to reach it. The scratching got louder. The door handle started to turn. Jessica's voice cut through all the others. The vent! Go through the vent. I can't fit through there. You have to try. It's the only way. They can't follow you through the ducts. I ran to the vent. The grate was off from the contractor's work. The opening was maybe 8 inches wide, definitely too small for an adult to fit through. But I didn't have another option. I pushed my arm in. It fit. Barely. I pushed my head in, felt the sharp edges of the metal cutting into my shoulders. My body shouldn't fit. It was physically impossible. But I kept pushing, felt my shoulders compress, felt my ribs bend in ways they shouldn't, felt my body reshape itself to fit the impossible space. Pain shot through me, white hot and terrible. But I kept pushing. Behind me, the door burst open. I heard footsteps, multiple footsteps. The scratching sound, closer now, right behind me. Something grabbed my ankle, cold fingers, too many of them, wrapping around my leg. I screamed, kicked, felt a hand lose its grip, pushed myself deeper into the vent. The metal closed around me. Dark, impossibly tight. I couldn't move my arms, couldn't turn my head, could only push forward, inch by inch, through a space that shouldn't exist. I could hear them behind me, crawling into the vent, following me, their breathing echoing in the metal shaft, getting closer, and then I fell. The duct opened up, dumped me out into a larger space. I hit concrete hard, knocked the wind out of me, lay there gasping, trying to orient myself. I was in the basement, the boiler room, cold concrete floor, the sound of machinery around me. Emergency exit door 10 feet away, leading to the alley. I ran for it, burst through, stumbled into the early morning air. It was getting light out. Somehow hours had passed. I was covered in blood, my clothes torn, my shoulders screaming in pain. But I was out. I'd escaped. I never went back to that apartment. Never even went back for my things. Told the landlord to keep my security deposit, throw away whatever I'd left behind. I didn't care. I just needed to be away from that building. Maria called me weeks later. They'd hired a medium, some kind of paranormal investigator. The person said the building had thin places, spots where the barrier between our world and another was weak. The ventilation system was one of those spots. Things could get trapped there, caught between worlds, unable to move on, unable to return. They found records of other disappearances connected to the building. Small things, spread over decades. A maintenance worker in 1973, a teenage boy in 1988, an elderly woman in 2001. All vanished without explanation, all last seen in the building, all possibly trapped in the walls, in the vents, in the spaces between. The city condemned the building last month. Too many complaints, too many investigations, too much negative attention. They're tearing it down next spring. Maria says maybe that will finally free them, free Jessica and all the others. Let them move on. I hope she's right. But I'm not sure, because I still hear the whispers sometimes. even in my new apartment across town, even with different walls, different vents, different building. Late at night, around 2 a.m., I hear Jessica's voice. "Thank you for trying. Thank you for believing me. But you shouldn't have looked. Now they know you. Now they'll always know you." And sometimes when the heating kicks on, when the air flows through the vents in my new place, I hear the others too, the chorus of voices, all the people trapped in all the buildings, in all the walls, in all the spaces humans never see. They're everywhere, in every old building, every ventilation system, every forgotten crawl space. Trapped people who got too close to the thin places, who heard the whispers and answered, who tried to help and got pulled in. I don't answer anymore. When I hear voices in the vents, I turn up the TV, put in earplugs, ignore them no matter how desperate they sound. Because I know what happens to people who try to help. I know what's waiting in the walls, and I know that some spaces aren't meant to be opened. Some voices aren't meant to be answered. Some people can't be saved because they're not really there anymore. They're somewhere else, somewhere in between, somewhere we're not meant to go. Jessica Ramirez is still missing. Officially, the case is cold, but her voice is still in that building. And when they tear it down this spring, I wonder what will happen to her. Will she finally be free? Or will she just move to another building, another vent, another thin place? I guess I'll find out. Because I still hear her sometimes. And I'm starting to think she's not calling from that old building anymore. I think she's calling from inside my walls, and she's not alone.